Hello, my name's Gareth. I'm the Raising Standards leader for Humanities at Cathays High School. And as part of our Year 7 new curriculum development and our contribution to this project, I've been developing a series of lessons on the development of Cardiff Docks and, in particular, the community in Tiger Bay. Um, the sort of motivation for this unit, and a lot of the work we're doing towards the new curriculum, is trying to tell local history stories, but within the context of wider sort of national and global historical events, in this case, the Industrial Revolution. Um, we have been aware often of how little some of our learners know about how Cardiff developed as a city, and probably telling those kind of important local history stories has been an area that we've neglected over the years in favour of a very traditional national curriculum approach, and that's something we're really determined to move away from as part of the development of the new curriculum. So as a starting point for this unit, I wanted to maybe focus on those things or places, locations that might be familiar to some of our learners. At Cathays, we draw pupils from a wide range of parts of the city, many out of catchment, and a lot from Butte Town. Several of our families could trace their roots back to relatives who came and settled in Tiger Bay. So I wanted this unit to start with things that might prompt recognition as a starting point for encouraging pupils to look at historical change, um, and places that they might still be familiar with today, but understanding where they fit into the history of Cardiff and of the Welsh nation, and in doing so, trying to draw some links with surrounding areas. It's equally interesting sometimes how little our learners know about the history and geography of the South Wales valleys and the areas that surround Cardiff. A lot of the lessons I developed as part of this unit put a big emphasis on literacy skills, particularly reading. We wanted to make sure that gaps in reading ages were addressed as part of our catch up from the disruption of the last couple of years. It was really noticeable when our new Year 7 cohort came up this year, the impact lockdown had had on some of the reading skills and reading ages of our learners. So uh, we've tried to have plenty of focused reading tasks, plenty of emphasis on vocabulary development, but in ways that um, fits in meaningfully with studying historical change in this unit and its impact, and having plenty of challenge uh, for our learners. So the example on the screen now comes from a card sort that emphasizes pupils thinking about the same information in different ways, and tries to hopefully kind of connect a focus on new vocabulary and understanding that vocabulary alongside understanding chronology and the sort of significance of the way Cardiff developed. Following the Welsh Government report into the provision of histories that look at the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic experience, we wanted to make sure that our new curriculum, you know, really has a focus on addressing that, particularly as it contains, the context of our community is that we are a community of a lot of different ethnicities, nationalities, and cultural and religious backgrounds, and therefore Tiger Bay was an ideal sort of topic to allow for us uh, to kind of speak to pupils' experiences and backgrounds. Um, in the focus on Tiger Bay, we really wanted to emphasize the idea of considering identity through the study of history, to ensure that we're addressing the idea of Cynefin, but also to fit in with the whole school vision we've developed that tries to make sure that the development of our curriculum and of units of work and of lessons um, looks at what we can offer learners in terms of developing their knowledge and developing their skills, of course, developing their well-being, but also giving them a sense of identity and different identities within Wales. Again, we wanted this part of the unit to have plenty of focus on reading tasks, but also perhaps the wider development of inquiry skills, a bit more, starting with some basic work on inference, but then increasing the challenge as we got into some lessons on the 1919 race riots, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. One other thing we were quite mindful to do is want to emphasize positive accounts of Tiger Bay, and challenge some of the assumptions and stereotypes about the kind of community that it was. So as part of that, we put a bit of emphasis on the work of local historian Neil Sinclair in this lesson, and hopefully giving pupils a sense that a diversity of writing about the past exists, which perhaps the old national curriculum or the way it was delivered in some schools didn't always provide. And we wanted also pupils to become aware of links with the present and how the sort of evidence of the kind of community that existed in Tiger Bay and developed, is still around us today and has had a really big impact on our city, right up to things like the unveiling of the statue of Betty Campbell recently. This is a unit that tries to emphasize to pupils that they are part of the ongoing story of the city, and that the story of Tiger Bay is part of their heritage as citizens of Cardiff and Wales. As part of the unit, as I sort of started to mention, I wanted to give particular focus to the race riots of 1919, as we start to sort of tell more local history stories. I think we thought it was important to tell some of those neglected or forgotten or uncomfortable aspects of Cardiff, or indeed Wales's history. But as we've moved away from sort of very traditional chronological Key Stage 3, we're finding ourselves having to be very careful to think about pupils' chronological awareness and make sure that's not something we neglected. So we regularly try to set lessons in the context of other things we've studied, and set the local history events we look at in the context of global events. In this case, the First World War connects in terms of the causation, but also we wanted to give a sense of where it fits in a sort of larger chronology of history amongst other units and things that we've covered this year. The lessons on the race right continued the focus on historical inquiry that began with our initial look at Tiger Bay. But what we tried to move into as the unit went along was perhaps more challenging reading of contemporary newspapers. In doing so, we wanted to try and develop pupils' understanding of why interpretations of events like the race riots can differ, and get them thinking about the reliability of different types of evidence. So we kind of followed that up by looking at accounts of people with family links to events, and people who can talk in terms of their grandparents and the stories they told them about the riot. So it's a really good route also at looking into historical interpretations. And a little bit like with the use of writing of a local historian like Neil Sinclair, we wanted those more modern accounts to also draw on the experiences of sort of people who've been prominent in that same community and can speak to the experiences of that community. Like, for example, Gaynor Legal, who's very well-known figure in the sort of Bute Town community and was the first Black woman councillor in Wales. And having those examples of those people to tell these stories, we thought was really, really important.